Hey guys, Liz Morris here, and I'm back with another video for you talking about a different kind of gel today. Today I'm going to show you how to work with really thick gels. Last time I showed you how to work with really thin gels, and I wanted to just show you real quick as a comparison, okay? So here's a really thin gel on the right. You can see how it just self-levels even when I just tip it to the side. And here is a really thick gel that even if I were to turn this upside down, you can see it does not self-level, it does not move at all. And I wanted to discuss how do we work with gels like this and why do we work with gels like this. Now, one of the things I didn't really talk about last time was what type of scenarios would you use a thin gel for? So the thin gel I would recommend using for overlays, anything that you need to be smooth, or the finishing layers of an extension. If you guys have watched my videos on how I build artificial enhancements, extensions, I use usually two different gels. I use a thicker gel for building the actual extension portion, and then I use a thinner gel for building what I call the body of the nail, or the meat of the nail, which is all of the apex and all of the shape and everything that's on top of that artificial length that we've created. But you can also do all of that with just a thick gel. And this is a really, really thick example of a thick gel. This is Light Elegance Builder, and Builder actually comes in lots of different colors. It comes in clear, it comes in natural, I think, no, not natural, sorry. It comes in clear, it comes in baby pink, it comes in cosmetic pink, it comes in a lot of different shades of pink, and it does come in some like more sheer colors as well, like a sheer pink, more like, that's what I meant by natural, is like more of a sheer type of pink. This is the baby pink one, so you can see how thick this is, and it is really thick. Like when I pick it up, it's very stringy. It does not self-level at all. You can see in the jar, it's like not self-leveling at all. And so a lot of people are confused, like why the heck would I use a gel like this? And how do I use a gel like this? And I also find that a lot of people err on the side of using gels like these because they don't move, and so that makes them feel like they've got a little security blanket when they're dealing with gel. And I want to encourage you to really, think about the products in their best use way rather than choosing them because they make you feel safe when you're working with them. Because I feel like a lot of people miss the mark when it comes to choosing products, and they end up fighting their product more than having a product that works with them. Now, again, my studio is pretty cold. It's probably like 60 degrees in here. So all of my gels are going to be more solid than they would be if I was at room temperature, or even if I was in the middle of summer. In Arizona, usually room temperature is like 85. So that's very different, depending on where you are. Humidity and heat, as far as temperature, can really affect your gels. And you also have the ability to, warm them up if you want to. So if you feel like you're, in the middle of winter, your nail room is really cold, you can actually put like an electric little hot pad on your table and just warm up your product before you use them. Or the other thing is you can just get a nice bowl of shallow warm water and just stick your jar in it and allow that to, to warm up your gel to like more of a room temperature. Don't put your gels in the microwave. I've heard of people doing that. You don't want to do that. It's just because you can't really control the temperature. And also, I feel like that process can actually change your formula. So I recommend either just a bowl of warm water just to get it a little bit warmed up, or a nice hot pad on your table. And that's also something that a lot of people do with competitions to make sure their product is the right temperature before using it. Okay, so the benefit of using a thick gel like this, there's a couple different reasons why we would. And actually, I didn't prepare a nail form yet, but let me just do that really quick. Now, I'm going to put on a shoddy nail form, which means I'm not even going to try and get it to fit properly. I'm just going to put this on here to show you. Okay. So a lot of times when we put nail forms on, again, I'm not even going to make an effort to do this, but a lot of times when we put nail forms on, even if we have the nail form properly fitted to the nail and everything is wonderful, let me just zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so let's say this nail form is perfect everywhere else. A lot of times you're going to have a teeny little space here. And especially if you have cut a relief notch for the hyponychium, the little V-shaped notches that I have shown you in how to actually apply nail forms properly, you're going to have maybe a little gap here. And I've been asked about the gap many a time, which is, Liz, what the heck with this gap? Like, I've got the nail form on perfectly everywhere else, but there's still this little space. Well, the nice thing about a thick gel like this is that when I put the gel on the nail form, and even if I just roll this on here, you can see that the gel doesn't self-level at all, and so you're not going to get seepage underneath the nail as much as you would if you were using a very thin gel. You can also see how nicely that just sits on the nail form. It's not running down the sides. Even this little string over here isn't moving, okay? So one of the advantages of using a very thick gel is that you can use it for your nail form portion and when you're extending. So let me just kind of maneuver this around. Now, when you're doing your extensions, you do want to make sure that there's a nice substantial amount of product that attaches wherever the natural nail is, wherever it meets the nail form. You want to make sure that it's not paper thin. So if I were to scrape some of this off, I put this form up underneath here, okay? You don't want to have it where it steps down, like where everything is so thin here that there's like a big step down between your natural nail and your nail form. You want to make sure that there's enough product where it's got, you know, a nice transition and there's enough product here at that seam. Otherwise, you're going to end up with breakage when you take off your nail forms. But you can see how nice that is on a nail form. It literally sits wherever I put it. The trick to getting the gel to work with you is with builder gels, I like to scoop from the edges. You'll notice how it's got a big string on it, so I break that off. And you want to use more product on your brush than you think you do. If you're ending up painting it on, so let me show you what most people do when they start working with thick gels. They only put about that much on their brush, and they paint it on as if it were nail polish. So then they go like this, and they're painting, painting, painting. Well, that doesn't really help you get the gel where you need it to be. You can do that for your wetting layer, but you want to use more gel on your brush so that the gel is able to be maneuvered better and follows you, okay? So you can do a wetting layer like that on the nail form if you want to, but then you're gonna pick up, you know, a nicer dollop of gel, and when you have that wet layer, it's like the gel will just go with it. Now, when I showed you the thin gel, remember I showed you I just barely pressed down and it attached, and then I could even like roll it off and it would self-level. Well, you can see that this gel does not do that. It self-levels a little bit, like you can see it moving right there, but it really doesn't self-level a lot. It'll self-level more when it's got a wet layer underneath it, and it'll move around a little bit better for you with a wet layer, but it definitely does not self-level when it just sits there. So with thicker gels, what you want to do is kind of massage it on the top. And I'll show you this also on a full nail surface if we were doing this like all the way from cuticle to free edge on an overlay or something. The trick is you want to have quite a bit of gel on the nail, and you want to just almost like swirl and massage the top of the gel to get it to go where you want it to go. So it's a little bit more of like a massaging motion with the thicker gels, and I find that works really, really, really well. And it also helps it self-level a little bit better, and then of course having that wetting layer underneath also really helps. Okay, so again, this is Liz just messing around on a nail form, but you can see how easily I was able to get that gel to move around for me. It's really about massaging it on the top. Okay, so I'm going to cure that just for a second so I don't have a big mess on my table. All right, so let's actually show this on a finger that we would be doing like cuticle to free edge. All right, so again, you want to do your wetting layer. So you can just pick up, let me put this jar on camera so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I like to just pick up a little bit from the edge of the jar. Don't worry about your jar looking like this. You don't want to be stirring it or anything, because the thicker the gel, the more easy it is to get bubbles in it. So don't be stirring your gels, especially your thick builder gels. Just leave it alone, just like that. And you can see even the indentations where I'm picking up gel from the side. Okay, so I'm going to do my wet layer. So with this, you can, kind of put a little bit more pressure on your brush. Again, if you were using a base coat underneath, you would have base coat on here. Maybe it's just, the builder straight on like a primer layer or on a bonder layer. Totally depends. And really the determining factor for what you use under your gel isn't like personal preference. It's what the system tells you to use underneath, okay? Unless they have, you know, several options to choose from based on like nail types. Most of the time it'll just be use this product first as your base and then go in with your builder. All right. So you can see how textured that looks. It's not self-leveling on the nail. It's got a lot of texture on the top. While I have that wet, let me zoom in for you here so you can see. I'm going to pick up a lot of gel with my brush. So I just scoop in like that. Nice big dollop. You can even go bigger if you want to. There's actually some nail educators that I love that call it like an obscene amount of gel. So when you do this, you can roll the gel off like that if you want to, or you can just put the dollop down and start massaging right away. It's up to you, but I find that with thicker gels, when you, let me do that one more time so you guys can see because I wasn't really paying attention to what I'm doing. Again, you can always scrape it off if you're not happy. Just use a lot of pressure on your brush and scrape downward toward the free edge. So an obscene amount of gel, you know, like a big, big, big dollop. That's quite a large dollop on my brush. You can take this right in the middle is usually where I do it because you don't really want it right up against the cuticle and you don't want it too far on either side or the free edge or anything like that. But you're going to end up with like this big booger of gel on your nail. Then you can go back and if you want to, you can clean off your brush a little bit, like scrape it off on the edge. So like here, I can just scrape off like the back side of my brush if you want to have like one clean side as you work with this. I'm just going to take my brush and I'm just going to, again, make contact with it. I don't push very hard. I'm maybe like pushing that much on the nail. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of just lightly massaging it like this, okay? You can also come back from behind it and kind of push it upwards a little bit. And you can also come, like, see how it just stays attached to my brush like that? You can also come up as if this were like acrylic or something. You can also come really close to the cuticle and kind of push and massage from side to side. So I'm just showing you in slow-mo kind of what I would do. But really, you're going to end up with just this big dollop of gel in the middle. So the more gel, the easier it is going to be to get it all over the nail surface and to get it to kind of smooth out. And then what I like to do is kind of push it up against the cuticle area like that. You can, like I said, you can play around with it a lot with thick gels. And then you can, again, do the same thing I did before, which is like the semicircle motion, or you can do a little bit more of like a massagey, swirly, twirly type of motion and just work that down. And then when you get to the end, if you have too much, you can kind of pick it up a little bit and let it sit. Okay. Now, of course, we're going to have to file this nail. It doesn't self-level as nicely as the thinner gel, and my apex is a little bit too far forward, so I can even just move it back a little bit, like that. All I do is just kind of touch, like here, and this is a lot easier to show you from the side on camera because it doesn't move as much. You can just kind of like maneuver and pull the gel backwards to where you want it to be. And again, give it a second because usually it will self-level a little bit. You can do that on the sidewalls if you want to kind of pull things back to the center. Like let's say it's a little bit too heavy on the right-hand side. You can pull, you can touch and then pull that gel upward like that. All right, and just let it sit. And then filing this really isn't that hard either because gel files really easily. But I just kind of wanted to show you, like, you can play around with this quite a bit. And it will eventually self-level, even with these thicker gels. The more gel that's on the nail, the more it will self-level. And obviously this is an obscene apex. Like, this is way more gel than you would ever need in this area, unless this nail was like a mile long. But you can see it actually does do a better job. When there's more gel on the nail, it actually helps it to smooth itself out. And the more gel that you're working with, especially with thicker gels, the easier it is to maneuver it around. But it's not as easy to work with as, let's say, a thin gel, but it's definitely not going to slip or, you know, slide or move around on you as much as a thinner gel would. But you can see even that part where I had moved it and pulled it into the center, just after several seconds of me talking on here, you guys can see it actually does smooth out pretty nicely. Okay, so let me put my hand underneath so you can see that. So that's pretty good. Oh, and of course I get a fuzz in there. There we go. So that's one of the main things about working with these thick gels is you want to use a lot of the product, because if you just use a little bit, you're going to end up with a situation where you're painting it on layer by layer by layer and it ends up being a big fat mess. So let me, before I cure this, let me pull this off. And with thicker gels, it's a lot more stringy, so just watch where you get your strings because you don't want to get it all over your fingers or your client's finger for that matter. Okay. There we go. What I see a lot of people doing is they will push a lot when they do their builder gels, and so you end up with kind of a weird shape. And I'm going to try and replicate it. It's so funny because I try and replicate things that I know I used to do when I was first learning, and it's really difficult to go back. I don't know why, but it's like every time I try and do a video where I'm going to show, you know, the wrong way to do it, it's like I can't even remember what I used to do because I've been doing this for so long. So you don't want to be pushing a lot, you know, or painting it on like this, because you can see like how messy it gets. And this is why I think a lot of people get frustrated with builder gels, because they're not sure how they're supposed to work with them. So they kind of put them on and they're like painting it on as if it were gel polish. And they're going, oh my God, how am I ever going to get anywhere with this stuff? This is a mess. The other thing I've seen is where they put, you know, not very much pressure at the cuticle area, but then they really start, you know, pushing a lot on the center part, and then they kind of flick down when they do that. And what you end up with is kind of this big dollop of product on the tip of the nail, a little bit up here in the cuticle area, and like nothing in the middle. So instead, what I encourage you to do is, you know, put a big amount of gel on the top and really just on the surface, using your brush nice and parallel to the nail surface, just kind of do this kind of massaging, swirling type of movement, okay? If you're also using a very high brush angle and you're stabbing into your product, you might be doing the right motions, but by using just the tip of your brush, you're not going to get as much of that spatula type of effect when you're working with your product. So I want you to really concentrate on keeping your brush parallel to the nail surface, using that whole belly of your brush, and it's gonna help you maneuver the gel that much more, okay? So again, you can scrape that off, practice as many times as you need to, or if you're using a cheap gel that you're just, you know, you just got online or whatever and you're just practicing with it, that's great. You can cure it, practice, all of that stuff is wonderful. But I really encourage you to just practice a lot with your products, because it's going to help you get better and better and better. And each product has a purpose. It's not like companies are just making, well, some companies do, but most professional nail companies don't make a one-size-fits-all product, and that's because we have different parts of the service that we're trying to achieve. And so if you're using the correct product for the right part of the service, or if you're using the gel correctly, like I said, you know, using more of it so that it's able to do its thing, you're going to be set up for success, and you're going to have that much of a better experience working with your gels. All right, so I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more about thick gels. And if you didn't get a chance to watch my last one about thinner gels, I really encourage you to watch that one as well. I'll be in touch again soon with another video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.